Welcome back. We're talking security in 2017. In the Northeast was Boko Haram insurgency, across the country, armed robbery, kidnapping, then the military actions at different parts of the country,
herdsmen, Fulani,
crocodile dance. There were the herdsmen and farmers clashing. There was also the, what was this last one now? The End SARS, Reform SARS, security issues across the country. How has it been? Not a smiling situation, but is it possible to step beyond this? What's the way forward? We have two security experts in the studio, both of them retired military men. Colonel Yemi Dare, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, and compliments of the season.
Same to you. And Captain Umar Aliyu, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
Colonel Dare, let's begin with you. Your assessment of the security situation across the country in 2017.
Well, thank you very much. When you talk about assessing the security situation in Nigeria, especially, what I want to say here is that Nigeria as a nation, we're faced with different challenges in terms of security. And looking, well, even though we have a few days or hours to the end of 2017, but I would like rather say, looking back, we have been grappled with a lot of issues. First is that of the Boko Haram, which tends to take the front burner and more pronounced. And aside the Boko Haram, we have the resource issues, that is the Niger Delta, where we have the IPOBs, and then we also have the, the Fulani herdsmen too. And then aside that too, we have crimes such as, violent crimes such as cultism, kidnapping, rape, human trafficking, and then trans-border crime. And then aside that too, we want to look at the challenges we face in terms of some of the institutions, like the police force, and then some of the agencies that are responsible, for collaborating with the formal security infrastructure. You see, we also have some case of unhealthy rivalry, So these are some of the things that, to my mind, have played out. When you look back at the security situation in our country, and a lot, well, much as one would say that the government has tried, but there's still room for some improvement because. For example, we need to adopt technology, okay? The police force, for instance, we want to look at a situation whereby our police force will be fully computerized, such that if a criminal is arrested, here, or in respect of a crime, you should be able to, have kind of a robust data that you can tap into and then bring out, because there's a likelihood that if for instance, a criminal who is involved in cultism is likely to also galvanize into some other areas, say like political thuggery or trans-border crimes. So we must have a situation whereby we will be able to, readily come out with all these things. So that is some of the things or areas that we still need to improve upon. And then, of course, I want to also say that when you look at areas like aviation security, the security at our airports, especially, I think the government has also tried, because from my own personal experience, but because each time I, travel through and say the way, I think the operatives, they have tried there, even though there's still room for improvement. And of course, also when we look at the ports, the land borders, and then also the seaports. With the seizure of the cartels of arms that was recorded by the customs. Now, I would say that they've also stepped up, even though there's still much, desired of them in that
Okay, I'm
regard.
happy you mentioned the firearms issues.
Yes.
You still tell us some of those areas in specific terms, what the government has done to have tried,
Yes.
as you have put it. But Captain Omar, what's your assessment of Nigeria's security situation in 2017?
Well, as the senior officer said, I would want to swap tried with struggling. Yes, work is being done and there are obvious challenges. But before you can really appreciate January to December in terms of security, you will have to first of all try to measure what has been done against certain barriers or certain domains. And I have tried to do this privately across some 8 specific point areas. And they are like local conflicts. How much of that have we recorded from January to date? You look at terrorism, the impact of terrorism. You look at perceptions of criminality in our country. I'm talking of corruption now. You also look at arms proliferation, as the senior officer said. You look at violence rates and homicide rates. How many lives have been lost? You also look at law enforcement and police issues. Harsh, scrap SARS, if we can say. We also go to internal security perceptions and external security perceptions. And having done that, we begin to now do what I call a homeostasis of these variables. What is a homeostasis? It's just a tendency of these variables to stabilize or have an equilibrium. They are actually what you can call, different, genres of our security or insecurity index, but there's a push-drag effect of one on the other. What that means is, from January to December, for example, can we begin to say what is the cost of violence to our nation? Cost of violence being what was lost, both the victim and the perpetrator, what was invested in stabilizing the situation by law enforcement, okay? And what percentage of GDP is their sum total? So you begin to measure on these grounds or on these parameters to begin to see, really, has security been upbeat or downbeat? But in my own summation, it is struggling. And having done that, other than the cost of violence, what is the impact of, say, violence again on the economy? Okay? You relate that with, let me say, external security perception, which is another of the domains. What is the outsider's view of the security situation in here? How does he read us? Based on what is happening, what signals is he getting? You can append a figure to that. Then inside here, what's the average citizen's perception of security again? So when you begin to measure things like banditry and herdsmen, cattle rustling activity, local conflicts and clashes, armed robbery, kidnapping, when you measure them on this scale I have given you, and you begin to reduce it to figures based on costs now, you begin to see how security, or the lack of it, has affected our existence economically, politically, socially. And that gives you a more definite appraisal of the security situation. And having done that, I say we are struggling security-wise.